actually came up with conflicting information. And as such, we actually sat back with two different suggested strategies to approach Scientology. We actually stopped totally conflicting suggestions, but both people that we spoke to at the time were very concerned about Scientology. We actually stopped and we sat back and we said we'd wait to see would Tony come to his senses.
Well, is Tony here? Are you there, Tony? Are you Tony?
That's right.
Good evening to you, yes. And
good evening to you.
Good evening to you. What's your reaction to PJ's accusations?
Well, I'm afraid I've been hearing it for quite a while now, for over a year. And just regarding his statement that there was adverse effects on my personality. It's curious that this opinion didn't occur until he got his derogatory information from Bonnie Woods, etc. I've been in Scientology for, 4 years or something previous to that. And even though there was some concern on one or two occasions because of poor newspaper reports, there was never whatsoever any statement to me that people thought that my personality had in any way had changed.
Are you perfectly happy and content being a member of the church?
See, there's a wrong emphasis here, or there's a wrong concept here. I don't consider being in Scientology is being in life. Scientology is about life. It's about learning more about life. There are the term rundowns are mental processes, spiritual processes in Scientology. As you make use of these processes, etc., you get realizations. It's not about Scientology, but about life. And they're the gains that I've made.
But I mean, you're perfectly happy as you are.
Yeah.
And you're resisting PJ and the family's efforts to rescue you.
Absolutely, totally. Who's to be rescued? There's nobody to rescue.
Well, what do you say to that, PJ? The guy is an adult.
Basically, I agree he's an adult. He was recruited at a time of emotional stress, and since then they have used various hypnotic techniques on him. Sorry, I'd appreciate you didn't sneer at me.
I wasn't sneering, I was laughing. What you're saying is absurd and ridiculous, and it's been disproven in courts all over the world. This idea of mind
control. If you want to take
control.
court cases into it, there are numerous court cases which have shown what Scientology is all about. Scientology is about making money and controlling people's minds.
Yes, Mary.
Well, I just noticed that the only people who laughed when PJ mentioned hypnotic techniques were you Scientologists.
That's because the people up here don't know what it's about.
Sorry, can I just make my point,
Yeah.
please? The point is because I certainly believe now that I was subject to mind control. And the only person that I have asked, since I've come out of Scientology, I have asked several medical doctors and psychiatrists, but you don't like psychiatrists, and psychologists, how would they know they were under mind control? And to a man and to a woman, they have all answered, well, we wouldn't know. The only person who has answered me when I have asked that question, that they would know because they wouldn't be able to express themselves, was a Scientologist. That's a very interesting point.
Well, all right, then we have Kieran Benson here. Good evening to you, Kieran, who's head of psychology in UCD. Does that make sense to you, what Mary is saying?
I don't think I'd be using words like mind control. One of the things that strikes me about the Scientologists, having read their books, is the degree to which they use the surface rhetoric of psychology, while at the same time damning it as a science and damning psychiatry. The come-on that they have on the streets are these personality tests. I'd be very interested in asking Mr. Mansell if there's a manual, if there's any research, because it strikes me reading the tests, and I was acquainted with you 25 years ago as well on Tottenham Court Road, that they're not tests at all.
Is this the Oxford test you're talking about?
Well, this is part of it. I mean, it's called the standard Oxford test.
Yes. Nothing to do with Oxford.
No, but these things gain credibility by these associations. Standard sounds good. You'll see on the profiles that they have bits of statistics. They talk about the 2.5% of the population that will object to Scientology. They're very good at this sort of thing, but there's never, ever any evidence. And the whole point about science is that there must be some evidence.
Well,
reading Dianetics and reading What is Scientology, it's full of assertions, many very vague concepts, but nothing specific, and no evidence.
Okay. As you pointed out, we do have disagreements with some of the conventional treatments in psychology and in psychiatry in particular, some of the physical treatments that have been proven to be damaging. We do have problems with things like electric shock treatment. But in terms of evidence, it's an interesting point. There are, as I said at the beginning, approximately 8 million Scientologists in the world. Tony, who, despite PJ's feeling about it, will tell you he's a Scientologist. He's happy to be a Scientologist.
May I
to help
ask
him.
a
No.
question on that?
Well, let me answer. We're getting to this. I was asked
if
not to
somebody
interrupt.
comes off the street and does one of these tests,
Uh,
how do you process the information by which it comes back as a score?
When you say process the information, what do you mean?
You have 200 questions on
Right.
these questionnaires. What do you do with them? These 200
Each
questions.
of the questions has a score to it. The scores are all added up.
And how do you work this out?
The people who designed the test work it out. I
And
mean,
who is out of interest were they?
I don't remember the gentleman's name, but
But isn't that interesting that 8 million people have had this come on and you don't know?
I don't know the
SPO?
Come on, let's be ridiculous. I don't know the gentleman's name, but
it's
I can
a
tell you.
linchpin of your-
Should we
of
both
your
talk together, or
operation.
should we answer each other's questions? What's going to
Well,
work
if
here?
you answer my question,
Okay, I'm
I take
answering
my
your
next
question. You know, this reminds me of that TV program MASH. You know, where they both talk at the same
Reminds
time.
me of Monty Python and that machine that goes ping.
Right. Okay. I'll drink to that. The personality test was based on existing tests that were used in the field of psychology. It's not
That's my area. Which ones is a matter of interest?
Well, I'll tell you what. If you want to, I can concede here. You obviously know a lot more than I do about this field, so we can maybe save a lot of time by not getting into it.
No, I'd like to get into it because it's obviously the
All right, well, let's
first
get
point
into
of
it then.
contact with the public.
Let's get into it. You know, I don't know the names. I don't know the psychological history. You do. That's your field of expertise. I'm a Scientologist. What I can tell you is I've worked in churches of Scientology all over the world, and I've seen the personality test in use. These guys have done it, you know. It's something like 20,000 people in Dublin have done it. It's
But that's absolutely no explanation as to what it is.
no, it's not.
He
No,
just-
but what I'm
he
telling
says
you,
he doesn't
what
know.
I'm saying
Willie,
is it's
what
like
you- Willie
it's about
O'Reilly
as
is a
threatening as a
producer with the
slice of
Gerry
toast
Ryan
and
show.
marmalade.
We've had a number of contacts with the Church of Scientology over the last couple of years, and you know, one question that we've always asked is that the Scientology people are at pains to point out that they're a religion and not a cult, and this begs the question: is who's the godhead of the religion? L. Ron Hubbard is the founder, and he's the person who wrote the book on Dianetics. Is he God? Are you saying this man who died
Absolutely
some
not.
years ago is God? Well,
Absolutely
then
not, and he
who
doesn't
is
say
your
himself.
God and who is your figure? And what was the relationship between this man on whom all your religion is founded and God?
Mr. Hubbard was the researcher who studied into this area and developed the subject. He's not God, and he himself makes it absolutely incredibly clear that he's just a man and made these discoveries and made them available to people. On the subject of religion, I knew this was going to come up. I brought one little exhibit with me that anybody is welcome to look at this later on.
Could you answer just the second part of my question?
Okay,
No,
we
there
have
were
a
two.
fight or a conversation?
Well, no, this is public debate.
Okay, well, you keep talking, I'll keep talking.
No, the second part
This is an 88-page
who is God?
document
And who do you
presented
pray to?
by an
Who do you pray
Oxford
to?
University, Oxford of Oxford, England, Oxford University professor who has been studying religion all his life, travelled all over the world studying different religions, and I'm sure Mr. Gard here at the front knows the name Brian Wilson, eminent professor of Oxford University.
And he says,
This is an 88-page expertise studying all of the various indicia which are common to religions all over the world.
Yes.
And at the end of the 88-page document, he concludes that without any shadow of doubt, through all the criteria by which religion is judged, the Church of Scientology...
so
and the
who
religious
is your
philosophy-
God then? Who do you pray to?
Who do you pray to?
God is God. That's like, you know, who is the Christian God? The Christian God is
Well,
God.
we know the Christian God came on earth. He died on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a text there about who he is. I can't find any reference in the books as to who the God figure is of your religion.
Exactly the same God. The only difference is the Church of Scientology isn't a belief system in that we don't have teachings that outline dogma about God.
Okay,
So the
Mary,
Church-
who were you praying to if you were indeed you were praying to anybody?
I'd like to make 2 points,
Yes.
Gay. First of all, when I went into what Dianetics is what I went into first, which is the first part of
Yes.
Scientology, or the related field, I had no idea it was a religion. I had no idea it was a church. And that is the first deception is the OCA test.
You thought it was a self-improvement
I thought it
course,
was a
is that-
science of the mind which
Yes.
had been independently researched
Yes.
and proven.
Yes.
It has not.
has
That's the
not.
first point. Secondly, with regard to religion, I didn't know it was a religion. My background is Catholic. I probably don't practice as a Catholic the way I should, but I certainly have a personal relationship with God. And since I've come out of Scientology, the information I have about Ron Hubbard's attitude to Jesus Christ is a real eye-opener.